Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a great day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. Well, the election is over and it's time to get back to work. I didn't get charged over this election like I normally do, and I'm not sure what I was expecting, but the Republicans had promised us this red wave that was going to sail all over America, and at the end of the election, they were going to have a mandate to govern as they saw fit because they were just going to win in such large numbers. And so we saw that didn't happen. But what we did see was African Americans, men and women, making bold moves toward being a part of the governance of this country. Now, I know there are many of us who don't believe in voting or politics. We don't think they do anything for the progress of African Americans. But I think we need to examine that more closely, because every bit of progress that we have made as a collective in this country has been done through some form of politics. Even when we go back in the day with Booker T. Washington, where he was encouraging everybody to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, Booker T. Washington was networking with presidents, industrialists, philanthropists, rich people who were able to influence whoever was in the government at the time, making laws and passing legislation. So Booker T. Washington always had his hand in the political hat. And there has been legislation that has transformed the lives of black people. For instance, in Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, which was his response to the Great Depression that had begun under Herbert Hoover's administration, 300,000 black people were able to enter into the public administration's workforce for the first time. That was legislation, that's politics. Even down to integrating the United States military. Executive Order 9981 abolished racial segregation in the United States Armed Forces. Everything is politics, and so we can bow out if we want to, but we cannot dismiss the fact that politics impacts every aspect of our lives. So politics have always been a part of who we are. Sometimes it has worked for the good, and sometimes it has worked for the bad. When we go back to the slavery days, the 3/5 compromise actually reduced us to less than human beings. When we talk about the black codes and Jim Crow laws, all of that was legislation that was against us. But it has also been politics that have addressed some of our most important issues. For instance, the Emancipation Proclamation. It was a political document that at least freed some of the slaves. It didn't free all of them, but it freed some of them. And then the 13th Amendment came back and freed all of them. Politics. The 14th Amendment gave them citizenship. Politics. And the 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote. Politics. And the women weren't given the right to vote because in those days, women weren't voting. So no matter what you might think about politics, politics has shaped and influenced our lives and basically dictated who we are and how we move in this society since we have been in the Western Hemisphere. So politics is not only at the center of who we are, but it's at the center of who everybody else is too. And in recent years, the political system has just gone off the rails. Things that we thought were working, we thought we understood how the political process worked, and then we found out that, well, actually you don't have to follow the rules if you don't want to. Actually, you don't have to follow the laws if you don't want to. And that has really created so much chaos in America that I think we all got confused there for a moment. So this midterm election was really America's way of self-correcting. I think it sent a good message to people who think I'm going to just bypass all the laws, make up my own laws, make up my own way of doing things. It's going to be my way or the highway. And if you don't go along with me, there's something wrong with you. And I really think that that particular concept needed to be challenged and corrected, because we had gone way off into the deep end. with personalities and ideologies that are really anti-American if you want to just look at what America says it stands for. So things had gone off the rail. People had gone way out into random with ego and foolishness, I would say. So this election was America's way of bringing things back to the center and self-correcting. And I'm really glad that Americans cared enough to say, this is not how we're going to do it. You're not going to bully me. You didn't win. And you're not going to hold this country hostage until you can win again. You lost. And just because you lost does not mean the system is crooked or everybody did something against you. You lost. And frankly, I was just sick and tired of the arrogance and the lies. I'm not a left-wing liberal. I'm a conservative person who most of the time votes Democratic. But I live in the South, in a red state, and very often the people that I want to win don't win. But this whole idea that I'm going to announce ahead of time that if I don't win, somebody cheated, the election was rigged because I got to win. Now that is something that I have really had a problem with. We've been having elections all my life before I even got here. And somebody's going to win that election and somebody's going to lose. In the past, people have accepted that if I don't win, I'm going to go ahead and concede and try again next time or go off and do something else. But then you're going to get somebody who's going to lose the election, and instead of acknowledging that they lost, they're going to hang around holding people hostage, trying to make people feel loyal to them and putting out all kinds of lies and conspiracy theories as to why they didn't win. Because now I got to win. I got to be the president. And if I can't be the president, I'm going to tear the whole country up. Now that has been a real problem for me. So one of the things that I was really glad to see was that the candidates that the former President Trump supported lost. It is very important that they lost. Because if they had won, that would have emboldened him even more, and we would have to continue to go through these shenanigans and listening to all of this nonsense about rigging the elections and I won more than anybody ever won before in the history of the world by his candidates losing or by them struggling in Republican strongholds to win. It sends a message. It sends the message that we've had enough. Enough is enough. And for all the talk about President Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe and Joe this and Joe that, he fared pretty well. He felt good about how the Democrats fared. Because normally in a midterm election, the president that's in office, his party will lose seats in the House and in the Senate. And because they didn't get swept away, because the Republicans were predicting that they were going to end up with 60 extra seats in the House of Representatives. Well, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And I will say this, Joe Biden is an old white man. And at the end of the day, Americans, and I'm not talking about black Americans, but white Americans trust old white men. Because what old white men represent is the status quo. And they don't really want change like we want change. Because anything that changes, they seem to think that it's going to take something away from them. So they trust old white men to keep things as much like they are as they can. But anyway, he was happy. He said he has done better than any president in office has done since, I believe he said 1953. So he was happy about that. And finally, I want to say that I am really happy with the representation that African Americans gave. Some lost, but some won. There are black people now elected to office that they've never been elected to before all over the country. So if you believe in politics, and we have to believe in it to a certain extent, and they have the courage and the will and they have the faith to think they can get out there and at least try, then I don't have a problem with that, and I do wish them the best. And as for Stacey Abrams in Georgia, because a lot of emphasis was on the races in Georgia, I really do feel bad for Stacey Abrams. I think you really have to know how to read the room when you're running for public office. And again, you're running up against an old white man who understands politics. And even if you believe that they're suppressing the black vote, which is what black people have always believed, that they are suppressing our votes, coming up with all kinds of ways to keep us from voting, because our numbers are larger than what's reported, and they always have been. So as many as they can keep from voting, they're going to do that. But they're not going to admit they're doing it. And if you can't prove it, it's better just not to say it. I like Stacey Abrams' hustle. I like the way she gets out there and grind, as they say, because she really believes in herself and she believes in what she's doing. And I hope that she will do some deep reflection on her campaign, how it was run, and her message. And also in the case of Raphael Warnock, I think he could do the same thing. Because the fact of the matter is, I'm not sure that people even knew what they stood for. Because again, when you are running against a Republican, whether it's a white or a black Republican, they don't have to have a platform because they are upholding the status quo. But if you're a Democrat and you're trying to do something different, you got to articulate to people what it is you're going to do that's different. And it really needs to be something that's going to have some kind of a positive impact on their lives. And I really thought that was missing with the candidates in Georgia, the Democrats in Georgia. And Georgia is still a southern state. And they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep Georgia in the Republicans' column. There are a lot of black people in Georgia, and black people are constantly moving into Georgia. So in time, I think that black people will really be able to show some muscle in Georgia politics. We're going to hear more from Georgia before it's over. But for now, they're up against the system. The fact that they would put Herschel Walker out there in the condition that everybody knows that he's in to be the candidate for the Republican Party, that just speaks volumes. They do not care what state that man's mind is in. And that's how much they really want to win and control that Senate seat. They wouldn't care if they had to wheel him out of an insane asylum. They would still vote for him because he would do what they told him to do. Now, that's just how I see it. But African Americans really showed up in terms of voting and in terms of pursuing public office. Black women running for Senate and House of Representatives, Attorney Generals, Secretaries of State. I think that's fabulous. And I am really proud to see that we're not just covering our heads in the sand and complaining about how terrible everything is, but are going out there and doing what you can do. Everybody might not be able to do politics. Somebody might be able to do business. Somebody might be able to do education. Somebody might be able to do something else. There's a lot of things that can be done. And I'm glad to see that we're not just burying our heads in the sand and complaining about everything that's wrong. And I'm also proud of Americans in general who decided that we're going to self-correct this. You're not going to run over us like that. We're going to stand up for ourselves. We're going to stand up to you. And I really think that's a great thing. And so on that note, I will say I'm happy that Americans have the courage to self-correct and things can go back to people understanding that if I win the election, I win. And if I lost, I lost. The end. Okay. Thank you for listening. Let me know what you think about the video. Subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Share the video. And as always, have a great day.